Hello, friends. Golf is a two-handed game, but it's not symmetrical. And certainly our hands are not of equal skill and they have different jobs to do. So the combination of those effects means that the left hand, our less good hand, needs some extra help. And in fact, when I'm teaching golf, it's the very first thing that I show people how to do, put the left hand on the golf club. Now, if you look at champion golfers, most of whom are right-handed, many of them start the process by holding the club in their gloved hand, their left hand, their less good hand. And they do it in this fashion. They're standing, chatting with their caddy, looking at the wind in the trees, glaring at the photographers. And they are holding the club where the head of the club is somewhat between the feet. Obviously, a longer club is farther from your feet, nearer in with a short one. The shaft is sloping across the left knee, and they're holding the golf club down to their side with their left hand. Now, I don't think that they do this by accident. I think that years of practice and experimentation have shown them that this is a resource. And here's how I teach it. When I first ask a golfer to, or contemplate gripping with the left hand, I have them stand in front of me and just hang the hands to their side. Now, it's fairly typical that, particularly for a male golfer, the hands and arms hang in such a way that the thumbs are turned inward toward the legs. For taller, slender people, and more commonly women, the hands might be a little bit more palms facing the legs. What you don't see is anybody standing there like this, who me. It's interesting that Mickey Wright, one of my famous favorite authors of the books that I most enjoy using as a resource, actually mentioned that the hands would look at the legs. And I think it's interesting because being a woman, she found that to be a reference that made sense to her. But for most male golfers, it's actually with the thumbs turned in. So with the thumbs turned in, the next stage is I usually walk up and reach out and offer the handle of the club to a golfer. And what's uniformly true is that when they reach out to take the club from me, their hands turn in this fashion. Obviously, it's the lower arm, the ulnar turning, or the radius turning out away from the ulnar. And they end up with the palm looking at the sky. And very famous author, another of my books here, which is Tommy Armour in How to Play Your Best Golf All the Time, he actually drew a picture with the palm looking at the sky, and he was with dots on the fingers demonstrating where the pressures would be of the fingers of the left hand. So you can see the trend. When people reach out, they turn the hand this way. Well, even if that golfer then subsequently turns the hand into a more appropriate position with the thumb to the right of center, the damage is sort of done because the elbow and the shoulder have rotated into this tucked in position, and that's not a really great position for golf. I know that Ben Hogan advocated it, but in fact, for most people, they then have to roll the arm to get past their body, and that causes all sorts of problems. So what I have people do when I ask them to reach out and take the club is I demonstrate to them that they've made this error. And so that's when I direct them to hold the club down to their side. Now, I would suggest that you do this while you're chatting. Don't look. It's a bit like the observer effect with quantum mechanics. If you look, it changes the result. So look around you, chat with your friends. Don't signal that you've begun the process. But if you've got the hand gripping the club in the fingers, and the thumb is slightly to the right of center. And you can then, when you pick it up to attach the other hand, keep it from turning this way, then you've made an enormous advance in your potential to grip and then hit well. Now, once you do lift it up here, you're going to attach the other hand. But first, we need to check a couple of things. There's a crease, a line, as it were, between the knuckle of the left forefinger and the thumb. We used to check that it was pointing in the right direction by putting a sixpence in there. Now, that should be pointing up toward the right shoulder somewhere, certainly right of center. I know that Ben Hogan, in his famous book, actually advocated or found that it was beneficial to him to have the thumb right down the middle. But for most golfers, having that Y, which is a V with a stick on it, pointing up at your right shoulder is beneficial. And you'll notice that you can probably see at least a couple of knuckles without turning or relocating your head. And you can't really see the fingernails of your fingers. And in fact, Bobby Jones referred to the fact that it was pretty much a disaster if you could see the fingertips of your left hand. They're all referencing the same notion of how that hand should look. So then you almost simultaneously extend your arms and attach the other hand. And there's a lot of talk about how the right hand should go on the club. They generally agree that the middle two fingers form a sort of channel. They hook around the club, butted up against the left forefinger. The palm of the right hand is like a pocket that goes over the left thumb. The little finger wraps around the knuckle or over the top of the knuckle of the left forefinger. And the right forefinger and thumb make a Y, a V with a stick on it, with, again, the sixpence pointing up over the shoulder. Now, then it gets a little interesting because you have to then what I call bias. This thing about Ben Hogan liking to have his elbow pointing down here hasn't just simply watch the champions. They don't do it that way. You have to extend your arms because the arms and club essentially form the radius of what is a giant circle, rather like a wagon wheel that's resting on the ball and resting on the wall behind you. And so a circle needs a fixed radius, which is the combination of your left arm, particularly on your club, and a fixed center, which is really your neck. So you extend your arms, and then very importantly, you turn the elbow so that it's looking out at the target. Watch the champions. Very few don't do this. It's actually a function of the shoulder. The shoulder's higher and more forward, and that's what gets you, I call it, biased. Now, when you do that, you'll notice that the club has drifted over here in front of your right foot. Well, the ball shouldn't be there. It's actually over here, just slightly left of center. And so you have to rectify this by and don't do it by changing your arm back to the old setting or doing anything with your arms and hands. You should do it with your wrists by bringing the club back to where the imaginary ball would be. And that changes several muscles in the forearms, even the shoulders and back. You'll be quite surprised at how much that is significant. Only then do you look at the club face and ask yourself, should you adjust it? When it's down here, tempting as it is to look at it and be interested in whether it's orientated correctly, don't, because first of all, we're going to fix it here after you've rectified the location of the club vis-a-vis the ball and you, but also because several golf shots require that the club face be a setting other than square, so it depends a little bit on the shot in front of you. 3 of the 4 sloping lives require an open club face, and so we do that at the end, depending on the requirements of that particular shot. So that is how you particularly establish the left hand, the sort of forgotten part of the process.